Cheeks and seats, and we'll get going here. Okay, we're going to get this workshop started, and we're going to start in by swearing in our new counselor for Ward 3.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Seth Benham,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Oregon,
and the state of Oregon,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
of the officer of counselor
of the officer of counselor
of the city of Grants Pass, Oregon,
of the city of Grants Pass, Oregon,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. And then, Seth.
Thank you, Seth. Now you can't get away. Okay, we'll just wait for Seth to come join us, and then we'll get going. Next on the agenda here is we're going to have the Budget Committee orientation, and I'm going to pass it over to Aaron to start. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Welcome, Seth. Congratulations. And welcome, Budget Committee members. Thank you for being here today. March is an exciting month. I'm very excited, and we're kicking it off with our budget orientation discussion. Later on, we're going to be doing strategic planning, and there's a bunch of other stuff we're doing, but and swearing in a new council member. So this is exciting times. So today, the budget message is going to be, the budget orientation will be provided by myself and JC, our finance director. The outline for today's discussion is we're going to talk about what the budget is, how do we fit in as a budget committee in the process, what kind of structure do we have the budget set up as, and what are some of the important details that are really focused on the budget committee and their responsibility when it comes to approving the budget and adopting the budget. So first off, what is a budget? The budget for the city is a legal document. It's a key piece because it makes lawful appropriations that give the city the authority to spend public dollars. So we need an adopted budget and an approved budget in order to spend money. It is a financial plan for the city for one fiscal year. So based on estimates of revenues and expenditures, we provide the budget committee with the proposed budget. It's an internal control mechanism because it does set aside appropriations, and we need to stay within our appropriations and our spending levels. It's a policy document as it funds the plans and priorities of the city council, and it is a public communication document. It really tells our story on where we're going and how we're going to get there. So our budget process is extremely similar to the rest of the municipalities within the state of Oregon. We all follow Oregon revised statutes. There are specific laws associated with the budget committee. The budget committee is to establish standard procedures for preparing, presenting, and administering the budget of Oregon local governments, and that's what ORS does. It encourages citizen involvement. Each budget committee meeting is a public meeting. It provides an opportunity for the public to come and listen to and see how the allocation of resources are being spent. It also provides an opportunity for the public to speak. So each budget committee meeting is required to have public comment also. And then when you're proposing it, it does institute a method of controls of revenues and expenditures and promotes efficiency and effectiveness in the use of public funds. So the budget officer, who's the city manager, and city staff prepares the proposed budget. And we're in the process of starting to do our work now on that. The budget committee then reviews, revises, and approves the budget. It becomes the approved budget through a number of different meetings, which I'll discuss. The city council then holds another public hearing makes any further revisions if necessary, or adopts the approved budget, and ultimately it becomes the adopted budget. It's just sort of an outline here where staff provides the proposed budget. The proposed budget goes in front of the budget committee, who ultimately approves it. City council then takes the approved budget and adopts the budget as approved or with minor changes. The budget committee consists of our 8 city council members and 8 people at large for the city. Primary roles is to hear the budget message, to hold public meetings, to provide that public input, to review and discuss the proposed budget, to make any revisions, and 2 important things is to approve the tax rates that we have established and to ultimately approve the budget. So the roles, and there's some differentiating roles between City Council and the Budget Committee. City Council sets the policies and priorities for the community, ultimately the service levels. The Budget Committee confirms the resources allocated for the Council's policies and priorities. So policies, priorities, service levels occur on the dais with the City Council. The Budget Committee confirms that the resources are associated to Council's goals. Council creates and confirms and/or adjusts revenues, and the Budget Committee confirms ad valorem property tax rates only. City Council also confirms or makes any kind of changes to the approved budget, and the Budget Committee confirms and changes the proposed budget. Holding public meetings, all Budget Committee meetings are subject to public meeting law. A quorum is required to conduct business, and a majority is required to take action. The budget is a public document once it's released to the Budget Committee, which will happen in May. The committee must take public comment at each public hearing, and any member of the public may speak. So as from a calendar perspective, what we're looking at from a commitment time-wise also is the first budget meeting will be set for May 13th with following dates of May 15th and May 20th. You will hear from myself, you'll hear from all the department directors that will represent all the divisions and departments within the city when it comes to the recommended budget. During the first budget meeting, the agenda basically looks like this. You'll be nominating and electing a budget chair and a vice chair. From there, you'll adopt the ground rules that'll set forth how you'll be operating through this budget cycle. You'll receive the proposed budget and hear presentations of the budget message. We'll talk about the strategic plan and capital allocations and the set schedule for future meetings. The strategic planning process is an important piece when it comes to our budget process. We establish a strategic plan, which Council is going to be going over later on this month, which guides where we're going to go. It sets our priorities. Once our priorities are set by City Council, it makes it a little easier for staff to propose a budget that allocates resources to Council's goals. This is just sort of a circle of how it works. We review how things are going. Council develops the strategic plan, ultimately adopts the strategic plan. From there, we develop a work plan, and the work plan is then funded by the budget, which ultimately you would be approving, and then City Council will be adopting. As mentioned, we develop the budget based on goals from the strategic plan, and those goals are then seen in the prepared budget, and that is reviewed by myself and the finance director by performing a line-by-line review with all the departments and the department directors. Just want to note also some of the things that we've done in the past to make sure we help with the efficiency, effectiveness within our operations. The city has had a healthy program in the past. We call it the PAVE program. It's the Performance Auditing Vision Enhancement Program reports. This has provided us with valuable information in years past where each division and department has been evaluated from an outside third party. They come in and they take a look at our departments, how we're operating. The good thing about that, there's good pros and cons. One, it's the reports in general all share 2 main themes. One, we're underfunded, and 2, we're doing very well with the funds that we have. It shows that staff has been very prudent with the stewardship of resources, and that, however, additional resources are needed in most of the divisions and departments. However, City Council and staff has also been aware of the affordability index of changing any kind of service levels due to utility fees and taxes. Just to give you a little bit of history before I turn it over to JC, when it comes to funding option attempts, and this is just general background for some of you, because I know some of the Budget Committee members are relatively new. We have been operating under our $413 per thousand permanent property tax rate. That's been going well, but we've also been operating under a special levy, and it's been a public safety levy in years past. We've been doing that for quite a long time. It started back in 2000 with 85 cents per thousand. It's now at $1.79. There's been attempts to raise it in the past, but those attempts have failed, and the $1.79 has stayed consistent over the at least last 10 years. In order to also address increased costs associated with those costs outpacing the revenues the city has been getting for the past decade or two, the city has implemented a utility fee for public safety, and we did that last year, and in years, and in previous years also. In 21 and 23, we've done some service level reductions, totaling almost $4 million in order to maintain a balanced, healthy budget for the community. So with that, that gives you just a little bit of background, and what I'm going to do is turn it over to JC, and he'll go into some more specifics when it comes to the budget.
Thank you, Aaron, and almost good afternoon. So I'm going to go into the details, some of the things I do need to read because there's our legal obligation to read them. So there's a budget structure and there's a basis of accounting. At the city, we use a modified accrual accounting, which is an alternate bookkeeping method that combines accrual basis accounting with cash basis accounting. It recognizes revenues when they become available and measurable, and with a few exceptions, records expenditures when liabilities are incurred. We also use modified accrual accounting, which is accepted by the government agencies because we focus on current year obligations. Governmental agencies have 2 key objectives: to report whether current year revenues are sufficient enough to finance current year expenses, and to demonstrate whether resources are being used according to legal adopted budgets. Our modified accrual accounting ticks those boxes, and it enables government agencies to focus on short-term financial assets, liabilities. It permits us to divide available funds within the organization to ensure that money is being spent where it is intended. We do have some cash basis accounting, which recognize transactions upon the exchange of cash. Expenses are not recognized until they are paid, and revenue is not recognized until payment has been received. That means that future obligations or anticipated revenues are not recorded in financial statements until the cash transactions have incurred. In contrast, accrual accounting recognizes expenses when they are incurred, regardless of the payment status of the charges, and records revenue when a legal obligation is created. This indicates the company has fulfilled an obligation and has earned the right to collect, say at the point when the goods are shipped or at the completion of service. That is hopefully the least boring part of my presentation here for the rest, but I do need to read that as an ORS guideline. So to get more into the fund stuff, the budget structure. So a budget is organized by fund, and a fund is a self-balancing set of accounts used to record estimated resources and requirements for specific activities. So think of your fund as more or less its own business within the city. All resources and requirements must be budgeted, and all resources and requirements must be balanced. Contrary to popular belief, it is an ORS guideline that we have to balance our revenues and our expenditures. And all estimations of resources and requirements must be made in good faith. So this is just a visual, again, to just show you that all the resources and requirements need to be budgeted, and they cannot be out of balance, meaning we can't spend more than we're bringing in. There are different fund types. and I'm going to go through these right now. We have the general fund, which accounts for all financial resources except those to be accounted for in another fund. We have enterprise funds, which are your water, wastewater, and stormwater. These account for operations that are financed and operated through dedicated user charges, so like our utility fees. Our special revenue funds are accounts for funds that are legally restricted and used for a specific purpose. Those are our transportation and lodging tax dollars, as those come from ORS and gas tax and things like that. We do have capital project funds, accounts for resources used for the acquisition or construction of major capital facilities. We have our debt service fund, the Bancroft, which is for our LIDs, and our GO accounts for the accumulation of receipts, usually for improvement projects. Internal service funds accounts for financing of goods and services furnished by one department to another. So this is a money-saving fund, typically. So what this is finance is considered an internal service. And so we only have one finance department. Police, parks, fire, they don't have their own finance department within them. So we consolidate all of those services into one department, and hopefully that increases our efficiency and our cost effectiveness. We have a fiduciary fund, which is a landfill. It accounts for the assets held by a government unit in a trustee capacity. So one of the big misinformations out there is that these city government's funds act like your own personal finances or business, and it doesn't. It is a little quirky. In your own personal finances, you can basically bring all your funds into whatever accounts you want and then redistribute those funds or use them as you want. Doesn't work like that in government finance. If we bring in money specifically for water, we have to spend those funds on water. And so we cannot use water funds on any other funds. And so I'm just trying to make sure that I'm very clear that each one of these resource areas, it has to be spent in that congruent area. So the general fund is slightly different than other funds as it handles everything else. By definition, its largest revenue is property taxes. The general fund has program and general support resources. So program resources, you could think of those as the dedicated funds. So parks fees go back to parks, police charges go back to police, so on and so forth. General support is what we call basically our non-dedicated revenue sources. So that actually just goes into the general fund as a pot of money, and then all of the departments in the general fund utilize those funds. And this is just that visual representation of the blue lines coming into the general fund. It's going all into one pot, but the blue is more dedicated to those areas. And then the green, which are typically our franchise fees, they all go in there and they get dispersed amongst the various programs and departments and divisions. So Oregon law allows local governments to levy 3 types of property taxes. So we have 2 of the 3 currently. The permanent rate is typically for operations. Your local operation levies is for operating and capital. We'll bring back to the slide that Aaron just went over. The city of Grants Pass has kind of institutionalized its local option levy to be supporting its operations. You could see other entities across the state that use levies for capital as well. And then any bonding opportunities is typically for capital. And we have none currently. The Oregon Constitution places limits on property tax. So Measure 5, passed in 1990, says that we need to be $10 per thousand of assessed value. And then Measure 50, passed in 1997, limits the growth of the assessed value to no more than 3% per year for existing property. This is in all jurisdictions within the city of Grants Pass, as we do have some different lines, but this is the most common that you would see in the city of Grants Pass as far as on your property tax bill. Here are all of the associated rates overlapping, and you can see we're about $8.49. Here are the school districts. There are 2 different school districts here in the city of Grants Pass. Either one of those is not duplicate in a zone, is what they call it in the county. But you can see that the Southern Oregon ESD is charged on each property, and you can see the maximum is about $4.87 underneath the $5 limit. So fund balances, the city will maintain adequate fund balances to meet seasonal cash flows, support a good credit rating, to have resources to meet emergency or unanticipated expenses, and to have sufficient resources to begin the next fiscal year. The budget shall provide for an appropriate beginning-ending fund balance. What that means is we want to have enough cash flow to support operating expenses. We're going to have relative rate stability from year to year for enterprise funds, so that's your water, sewer, and stormwater. There's a susceptibility to emergency or unanticipated expenditures, so basically we keep enough money in there for the programs that have those volatilities. The creditworthiness and capacity to support debt service requirements, so those funds that have debt, we need to make sure that we hold enough funds as far as showing that we can make those payments, and for banking entities, they like for us to have at least 25% above as a reserve to make those debt service payments. We do have a legal or regulatory requirement affecting revenues, disbursements, and fund balances. So there are certain things that are legally, we have to keep certain funds in there. And then there's the reliability of outside revenues. So as we potentially come into what people may call a recession, we want to make sure that we're very clear and very respective of where those revenue funds may be coming and what could be affected by those sorts of outside factors. So currently, there's a policy set by council in 2011 that we've done 2 minor amendments since then for the general fund percentages to meet policy in recent years. You can see the general fund policy is between 25 and 35%, and so on and so forth. This entire policy will be brought in front of council in 2 weeks as a review. It's probably a good opportunity, as we have several new councilors, that this is that opportunity to make adjustments to these policies. On the city's website, we do have the current adopted operating and capital budget for the fiscal year, June 30th, 2025. And I'll go through a little bit of the handout that I gave you, which is this packet right here in front of you. Here was what I would say would be the main pages to focus on as a new person. How to read the budget. And so that's the first few pages here of 91 to 96 in this packet. And then you can see there's other things in there I don't have in your handout. There's a strategic plan, there's key revenue details, expenditure details, capital budgeting, long-range forecasting. There's other good information, but the document itself is over 300 pages, so I just tried to give you the highlighted portions that I would focus on as of today. The next pages in your handout is going to be a page that looks like this. That is your funding matrix and financial summary on page 28. And that's just to show you that your total resources for the city match the total requirements, and your transfers in have to match transfers out. The next page is the adopted resolution of the current budget. And that's about 3 or 4 pages as we flip through. The next is page 320, which is an Appendix B. There's plenty of appendixes in the back of the budget book, but this one, I just, as an example, shows you the breakdown of all the revenue types in each one of the fund types, as well as the expenditure and the different expenditure classifications. And I think this one's really telling to show you the differences between the funds, where the general fund really is supported by people, where other funds, it's more about goods and services. Also in your packet, page 142 through 151 is an example of some of the descriptions of certain programs. And what I have in the packet is the parks, and so it gives you descriptions, summarizes their budget, links to strategic plan, and some of the other data that we track for the department year to year. The next page to look at would be page 33, and I'm going to kind of go through this a little bit more in depth. It's going to look like this. It's going to be one of the third to last pages, I believe, or fourth. You're going to have 2 years of actuals. Let me get out my pointer so I can walk you through this. So it's going to show you 2 years of the previous actuals. These are audited financial figures. It's going to have the previous adopted budget, It's going to have the recommended step that the city manager proposed to the budget committee. It's going to have what the budget committee approved, and then it's going to have what council adopted, as well as a projected fiscal year 26 or a future year. Oops. One of the other things to keep in mind on page 33 is that the bottom of page 33, which is all the resources for the general fund or revenues, matches the bottom of page 34, which is all of the requirements or expenditures. And another key thing that has been kind of the trend as of the last few years is you could see that if we were to spend 100% of our revenues at the top, that beginning balance is going down by about $2.5 million. And so yes, we are balanced, but we are set up to spend more than we are actually currently bringing in. Another example on page 126 is fire. And this is a general fund program that is showing that distinction of the difference between program-generated resources and the general support. So the general support are those undedicated revenues. And so this is what it'll show you, and I know I made a red box error on this page in your handout, but this is showing you that $1.3 million is what it takes above and beyond what fire brings in, above their property taxes, above their grants, in order to run the entire department. Another or different type of an example of what to look out for in the budget book is how other beginning balances are calculated. Typically, you can't see it in the picture here, but it is in your handout. Typically, the contingencies and or ending balances aren't meant to be spent. So those should be the exact same as the beginning fund balance for the out years. So you could see that is the match and married is what that handout is trying to show you, that our ending balance equals our beginning balance. So now I'm going to move on to capital, and this is on the website as well. And this is how you read the capital budget book. It is a little bit of a difficulty, and I did put some better instructions in this year. And that we'll go through this next few pages. And then the very last page, if you want to flip there, I can read the instructions. And this is an actual example of a capital page. So you can look at the very last page, and I can kind of read through what these instructions are telling you. So at the top, it delineates what major infrastructure services area. So the example I gave you is a lands and buildings project. And we have different areas, again, trying to show you that we have different areas of money and what we can spend those on. So water money needs to stay in water and water capital. And so there are different capital numbers and project names. And so we have TR for transportation, DO for stormwater, WA for water, and SE for wastewater, and LA for solid waste, and LB for lands and building. That is the coding in which we use. And so when you hear us speak in certain tongues, so to speak, as far as a coding, this is to hopefully let you know that there's a translation of how you get there and it back into the associated funds. Top right, there should be an estimated cost. This is a best cost estimate at the time of these pages when they're prepared. These will sometimes be varied or annual estimates for operating types of projects. Cost estimations are updated annually as projects can have a lifespan across different capital budget years. Also, in the last few years, you saw what inflation did, and so you would see projects go from maybe $1 million and so on and so forth and increase over time. This is something somewhat new this year. We're going to have a blue box as far as when the project was created to show the established date of the project. This can help inform as to the longevity of a project and with ever-changing priorities and funding scarcity. So even though the water treatment plant may be an expenditure and or project we're undergoing right now, you can actually see when we started setting aside those funds. This will be new. We currently get asked quite a bit with each of the projects of an estimated construction. So this will be labeled as operating or an estimated construction date. I know when Wade gets up here and one of the projects that he talks about is the Fourth Bridge, people always ask him when that's going to happen, and he seems to always say 20, 25 years from now. So this will hopefully help you read that and say like, oh, that these projects may not be happening today, there is money in there, but the estimated construction is somewhat out in the future. Strategic planning, again, has an importance on all of our capital. The way the strategic plan reads right now, we were going to change it and simplify it, not write out every single objective and or classification on there, or action and goal. So in the future, we're hoping to put just a box at the top that kind of codes that into the areas. We have 5 main goals, and so there would be some kind of coding to delineate how we got back to the strategic plan and what this project supports. The project description is the purpose of the project and will help define the project scope and details, which is slightly different than the project need. So you'll hear Aaron talk about we have scarce resources and we know we can't just increase costs to the community. So resource scarcity is a priority, and so we try and pick the projects that have the utmost importance at the time in which we are today and bring those forward for consideration as far as the resources that we are allocated. So resources, so down at the bottom with the numbers, the resources is a fancy word for revenues. So these are the funding sources and are tracked of each of the projects. This can show the vast number of areas that can contribute to a project based on the scope and importance by policy. The most restricted resources are utilized first, meaning if it had transient lodging tax dollars and general fund money, we use the transient lodging tax money first, or SDCs first, before those unrestricted revenues are used. The requirements at the bottom, or expenditures, tracks the utilization of resources. So it tracks the expenditures and or transfers out of the project, as well as the appropriated balance. So now going through the columns, the very left-hand column with numbers in it is the last audited amounts for the project to date. So this would be through 2024, which was our last audit performed. The next, or the gray area, is going to be the adopted amounts in this column, which shows the previous year's plan at that point in time. The next is the previous year estimation, and so that's the year that we're currently in, and we're going to make an estimation. This column shows either a congruence or a deviation in the plan, which helps produce the strategy moving forward. So when we came up with the budget 12 months ago, we may have changed the allocation, the priorities may have changed in the middle of the year, and so this should hopefully show the current either congruence to the plan or that deviation. The next, or the orange column, is the column to focus on when we're reviewing at the budget committee level. These are the amounts that are brought forward as a desired resource and requirement. And so again, this is just kind of highlighting that this is the plan for the current year that you're approving. The next year is the projected, and so we take the information that we have, and if we still need resources or funding in the future for a project, we kind of see what that may play out like in a second year after the adoption or recommendation of the current year's budget, as well as a future. So if there's plenty of resources that are needed, like the Fourth Bridge, it needs a lot of resources. You'll see that there's a balance in future years that goes out past the 2 years of our estimation. And then the very last column on the very right-hand side is the total. So you can see actually the total of all the resources, all of the requirements, and hopefully I did not put you to sleep. And if anybody has any questions, I think Aaron and I will take them, or any of the other directors.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to look at first panel. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, council members, do you guys have any questions pertinent to this topic at this moment in time? I think you did blow them all away. Oh, do we have one? Oh, sorry, Joel.
So are we going to get a hard copy of both the capital and the operating? I think we might have got the audit for fiscal year 25, but
So we gave the opportunity of council to either get a hard copy or electronic version is always online.
Okay,
If you need an additional hard copy, we can make you one.
okay. I must have missed that. Okay, I'll need a hard copy.
So
But
we will be,
that's for the current year, though.
That's for the current
We
year.
don't have a document for the upcoming budget year yet.
Oh, okay.
So-
I need it for the upcoming one.
Okay, yeah,
So,
that's what
yeah,
I got the one for the current year. Okay.
it's a good question. So yes, you will receive a budget document book about 5 to 7 days before the first budget meeting.
Okay, anybody else? All right, I think we're good. Thank you very much. And at this point, we're moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is going to be a presentation from U-Turn for Christ in regards to Build for Zero. So just not to take up too much of your guys' time, if the Budget Committee wants to stick around and listen to everything, great. If not, we will not be offended if you so desire to exit at this point. We will be going into regular business, so I just wanted to throw that out there for you guys. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
It's on the next slide, so we don't see anything on the screen yet.
I don't have it up there yet.
Okay, no worries.
So-
So, yeah, that's the video.
All right, so you can just hit play.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Councilors, and city officials. Thank you for allowing me to come and share the Built for Zero initiative with you. Before we get started, we're going to play a video for you, and then we're going to get in and talk a little more about it. So here we go. No sound.
This community was hit really hard by the Great Recession of the 80s. We lost a lot of manufacturing. It's been slowly fighting its way back.
When I first started doing homeless outreach, I hated knowing that this was going on.
This community was hit really hard by the Great Recession of the 80s. We lost a lot of manufacturing. It's been slowly fighting its way back.
I'm not sure why it doesn't have sound. I have all the microphones up, or all the volumes up.
Well, my suggestion would be for them to go ahead and continue with their presentation. We'll call IT in and see if they can work on it while they're doing their presentation.
Might I suggest I have a laptop, I can set it up while Jeremy's speaking? That might be faster.
We don't allow that direct connection to our system.
Okay, so while we're waiting, once again, thank you for allowing to show this, present Built for Zero to you. I've asked Julie Thomas, she's the president of PATH, that's Partners Assisting the Homeless, to kind of, field any questions and help out with this in any way. Built for Zero, it's a proven approach to ending homelessness. Let me get to the next slide. There we go. What is Built for Zero? Built for Zero is a national initiative aimed at ending homelessness. It focuses on data-driven and coordinated services. It works with cities, counties, and nonprofits to track real-time progress. It prioritizes accountability, case management, and housing solutions, and it helps communities reach Function Zero. What is Function Zero? Well, the definition of Function Zero is the point where homelessness is brief, rare, and non-occurring because more people are exiting homelessness and then entering it. What Built for Zero does, it uses real-time data to track and respond to homelessness in real time. It aligns service providers, nonprofits, local government, healthcare, police, churches, and more. It focuses on the housing first with accountability. It reduces barriers to assistance while ensuring long-term stability. And it helps systematically reduce homelessness, not just manage it. And I think that's what's the greatest thing about this, is that we won't just be managing homelessness here. We'll be dealing with it. We'll actually be systematically reducing it, and hopefully we will be reaching Function Zero here in Grants Pass. Where Built for Zero has had successes, we're going to show you a video from Rockford, Illinois. Hopefully we'll be able to do that. Rockford, Illinois is actually ended chronic homelessness, veteran homelessness, women with children homelessness, those with disabilities with homelessness. Bakersfield, California is another one to reach Function Zero for homelessness and veteran homelessness. Gulfport, Mississippi had a 75% reduction in unsheltered homelessness. Chattanooga, Tennessee has cut homelessness by 40% through coordinated case management. Denver, Colorado is a city that actually integrated Built for Zero into the citywide services, increasing permanent housing and placement. That's just a few of them. There's many other communities that have also adopted this and have reached Function Zero for multiple homeless populations also. Why Grants Pass needs Built for Zero. Right now, the estimates are anywhere between 400 and 600 homelessness in our area. That's in encampments, the cars, couch surfing, etc. Another good reason is that we have overwhelmed emergency services. Law enforcement's not able to be tasked to some of the jobs that they need to be responding to because they're responding to this issue. Our hospitals, our fire, our EMS are all being taxed by the homeless issue right now. And then there's scattered resources. We don't actually have no centralized system for addressing this. We have a lot of nonprofits that are working really hard to address this, but we don't have an actual place where we can house everybody under one place to actually address the situation. And then we have the encampments concerns, lack of accountability and public risk. One thing that we all know and we've all seen is that there was an increase in crime rate, trash, other things from these encampments. And another reason we need it is Built for Zero, it's proven. It's a structured proven solution rather than reactive crisis management. Why now? We need to fill the gaps. Grants Pass has numerous incredible organizations working to serve the unhoused, but gaps remain in the system. The Built for Zero Stabilization Center fills those gaps by addressing critical needs that other services cannot fully meet alone. Current challenges we are facing: lack of affordable housing, long wait times to enter residential treatment, and many in-house falling between the cracks in the system, particularly mentally ill, elderly, veterans, and those with disabilities. Additional challenges. Organizations like MENT, they focus on meeting immediate medical needs, getting people off the streets, and work to transition people to services they need, but cannot provide immediate and long-term stabilization for those in crisis. Gospel Rescue Mission offers structured transitional housing, but it cannot accommodate all populations, including those with pets, disabilities, or active addiction. Youth for Christ. We provide faith-based recovery, but we require a commitment to come on our program, which not all in-house individuals are ready to commit. And other local services like shelters, warming, cooling centers, and peer support and case managers like a central hub for coordinated care. What Built for Zero would look like for Grants Pass. We would have a stabilization center with security, 24/7 staffing, temporary housing, and access to services. It would also provide medical and mental health and addiction support in one location. We would have case management and vocational training to ensure long-term stability. We would offer faith-based and secular services and provided by community partners for lasting support. And what that would look like, that would be like AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery, and other things like that. We've been working really hard throughout the community, working with other nonprofits and speaking with other nonprofits, trying to coordinate and put this together. And we feel that once the property or site was dedicated, that we feel we can have this up and running within 45 to 60 days. And that's the end of the presentation. So I will open it up to any questions if you have it at the time, but I think they're working on the video and might have it ready. Let me go back to it.
She's going to set up the video now if you want to just field questions.
Okay. So at this time, I can field any, Julie and I can field any questions if you have any questions at this time.
Sure. Rob, and then Kathleen.
Yeah, thanks for being here today. Very, very hopeful stuff that you're presenting. It's great.
Thank you.
So with regards to the name of your organization, U-Turn for Christ, I have no idea how you perceive your future role in this whole project.
Right.
Would you be allowed to be named as someone from U-Turn for Christ and still be able to expect funding from government agencies, whether city council, state, federal, or whatever? Is that going to be an issue, or how are you going to navigate that?
I think what we're going to end up doing. Yeah, I think what we're going to end up doing is we'll probably bring this under another 501c3. We'll have a board assigned to it. One of the things, we're going to offer faith-based, but it's not going to be a requirement. We want to bring all kinds of different aspects into it. We want to bring, like I said, AA and any type of resource that we have in the community that's available, we want to be able to offer to somebody. That way nobody falls through the gaps anymore, if that answers the question. Yep.
Yeah, Jeremy, glad you're here, and this is very exciting. And I'm just kind of curious about how well you've been received as far as that stabilization center and other people that have their own navigation centers, how willing they would be to come in and form a single center together.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's been well received from everybody all across the board. Even with Mint, we sat down with Pastor Kevin, who runs, senior pastor of Calvary Chapel Grants Pass, sat down with Dr. Scott Jensen, who actually is one of the board members for Mint, and it was a great conversation. They see ways that we can all partner together. Mint can do things that we can't do, that we won't be able to do there, as far as maybe low barrier and stuff like that. Cassie Leach, who also works with Mint, reached out to me and said she's really looking forward to us being able to partner and collaborate in ways all across the board, from All Care, UCAN, Adapt, Choices, Options. They all have. We've had a few meetings at Calvary Chapel as regards to putting leaderships and steering committees and other committees together, and everybody is on board 100%, wants to see this work, wants to see us bring this here. We're actually, March 11th, we have a meeting with Community Solutions, who is behind the initiative, with all the pastors in the local area. They're going to be coming, and we're going to do a Zoom meeting with Community Solutions to see what that looks like for all the faith-based here. So the teams are forming. We got huge momentum going with all the nonprofits, and everybody really wants to see this go through. I know there's been suggestions of certain sites. I know we haven't written anything in stone yet as far as an actual site. It's funny that actually one of the sites we have that was proposed or thought about, some of those people that live by there actually go to our church, and our pastor met with them, and he explained that it wouldn't be like an encampment. He explained the structure of it, how there'd be accountability, there would be security, it wouldn't look like that. And once they heard that, they were all for it, and they said, well, we're going to tell all our neighbors about it if this is actually what goes through in our area. And so it's being well received, very well received.
Sure, go ahead, Kathleen.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're already forming committees with the other nonprofits that want to get on board with the stabilization center?
We are. Matter of fact, we talked with Amber, who works for the city, and she's probably going to be on part of the steering committee as far as data. Skylar, Jennifer here with All Care, they're very interested in partnering with us and being on the committees and steering committees also. Yes.
Perfect. Victoria?
So thank you for being here. Could you describe for us what you see the city's role, and including possibly financially, and what you see as the funding source for the nonprofits?
That's a good question. So I got a thing here, what a stabilization center would look like, with the ideal stabilization center. The first thing would be the existing facilities for rapid implementation, buildings that can be repurposed for intake, medical, and mental health evaluations, and transitional housing, space for counseling, case management, addiction recovery, and faith-based support services. Infrastructure for accessibility and safety, a good site would already have paved areas for ADA, ease of movement for seniors, individuals with disabilities, big enough that we can actually, fence. That's one of the things that one of the questions that we get a lot is, all the different, the different vulnerable areas as far as disabilities, seniors, women with children. Veterans, and definitely veterans. Those are the 4 groups that we want to target first. Seniors, ones with disability, veterans, and women with children. And a good facility would be big enough where we could section it off, where we don't have to put everybody in one. We can put women with children in their own area. We can put the veterans, especially the seniors and those with disability, in their own area. We would need to have a strategic location, easy access to highways and main roads for transportation and emergency services. Definitely would want to be positioned in the urban growth boundary, not directly in the city, allowing for broader jurisdictional support. High visibility for the community engagement while maintaining privacy for the residents. Number 5, long-term stability and growth potential, large enough to accommodate future expansion for vocational training and rehabilitation services. Support comprehensive approaches, including workforce development, housing, and recovering service, and that it would align with state and federal funding opportunities to ensure ongoing support. To answer the last question, the next steps is we need to identify key stakeholders and city partnership to move forward with the site, finalize funding strategies, including state and federal grants. We're right in the process of establishing leadership committees and subcommittees to plan and program and oversee the implementation of it. One good thing about Built for Zero is there's a lot of funding that's come with it. Home Depot is the Home Depot Foundation is it's a big partner with that. Quicken Loans. There's like Myers Trust. There's a lot of areas where we can bring in. Matter of fact, I spoke before the state legislator last week as far as HB 3644, where they're trying to allocate $217 million to provide shelter programs in the area. And so we're looking at all kinds of different areas to kind of decide we're funding. Because one thing the taxpayers have already been burdened enough with this issue. We're not looking to see them their gas bills or utility rates go up, their water bills go up anymore. We want to try to find the resources that are already out there. And there's a lot out there to do this.
Perfect, thanks. Hey, I just want to expand a little bit. So basically, you're Built for Zero, the way, the mentality behind it, the concept behind it is centrally located.
Centrally located hub. Yes.
So, and bringing all resources available, centrally located. Mm-hmm. Do you have in your mind, specifically for Grants Pass, do you have just a size of a facility that would kind of house that?
Yeah, it would definitely need to be 5+ acres. Okay. We want to be able to, definitely, because we want to be able to have a medical and a mental intake area where we can do that. We want to have another area where we can have case management going on at the same place. We would definitely want to have an area where we do the initial intake and orientation. When they actually come in, we get them medically checked out. One of the things we've been looking into also is people with pets. It's a barrier. They're like family to most people. And I've spoken with Margaret down with Rogue Valley Humane Society, and I think it's called Pongo. I've spoken with in Portland, and down in Ashland, I guess they're doing it. And there's a way that we can do it where we can allow them to come in with their pets. If there's dog runs and kenneling and harnesses and muzzles that can be put in place. And they would also be willing to come in and help vaccinate the animals and stuff like that. So that would also, we need a property big enough also for kenneling and services and like that. We've spoken with Vince. What's Vince's company's name again? Utility. Yeah, we actually, the last meeting we had over at Calvary Chapel, they brought one of the units in that we possibly they're rapid deployment units. They set up real quickly. They're about 10 by 20. You put 10 of them in a container. I think he's got 20. We could rapidly have these set up. It takes about a day to get these set up. So we could initially, those with disabilities and the seniors, we can immediately get them housed and then work on our next, vulnerable target groups.
So, just one sec. I'll take a sec. Finish my line of question here. So, basically, I guess I'm just trying to pull out the whole concept of this Built for Zero.
Yeah.
So, I'm taking it as your presentation is this is something that's a solution.
It's a proven solution.
Okay.
It's working elsewhere. It's working in other communities. Kern County, Bakersfield, they've reached function zero. And like I said, function zero, where it's brief, rare, and non-occurring, where there's more people exiting homelessness and going into homelessness. And it was your comments you made when you were running for mayor that you wanted to see nonprofits and other groups in the area start, looking for a solution. And it was that comment that made me start looking. Because we go out, Pastor Brian and I, who's out right here, we go out to the homeless camps on J Street and we feed them and we minister to them. And after doing that and reading your comments, I was like, we are in a position with Calvary Chapel, Grants Pass, and U-Turn for Christ. We've been doing addiction recovery for almost 27 years now. And most of the people that come into our program are homeless. And we see that there is a way you can have a better life. And homelessness is not permanent. There's solutions to it. And instead of just being reactive to it, we can provide a solution. And Built for Zero is a solution. If it's worked elsewhere, it can work for Grants Pass. And my vision and long-term vision is that if we bring this to Grants Pass, that other cities in Oregon, other states across the United States will come and take a look at what's going on here, and we can be a model for that. And we are in the public spot like Grants Pass with the Supreme Court and everything going on. I think that we can show that the rest of the United States, the rest of Oregon, that, hey, what Grants Pass does right and what Grants Pass does best is through this Built for Zero initiative. I know there's no doubt in my mind that this will work. There's no doubt in my mind that it will work for Grants Pass. If it's worked for other big cities like Houston, Texas, they've reduced their homeless population by 75%. It'll work here. It'll definitely work here. There's no doubt in my mind.
Thank you. I'm just amazed at the passion that you extrude. It's amazing. Seth, did you have a question?
Yeah, thanks for presenting. This is awesome. This is the first time I've heard about it, really. I did have a question. I was curious on, U-Turn for Christ uses real-time data to track.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples of what that data looks like? And would that data, assuming, maybe down the line this happens, would be accessible anytime to council and even more importantly to the community in general? Or is there examples from other communities that have, I don't know, like, a website with this data? That's just, yeah.
That's one of the successes of this is that we have 146 communities around the country that are already doing it. Community Solutions is an organization that has the toolkits, has all the data opportunities for us to tap into. Most of the nonprofits who are taking any federal funds already have to enter data into the HMIS system. It works for being able to report on what they're doing, but it doesn't work across agencies. And so this data would be that the nonprofits are actually working together at the table, sharing the data in real time, real names, real information. And based on that, they're able to identify two things. One is where are the gaps and why are people falling between those cracks, right? And the second thing is where in our system is broken, because everybody's working really hard. And you see our nonprofits working side by side every day for the last couple of years, more than ever before, and yet the numbers are still going up and people are still falling between the cracks. So this data will help us to see what's working and what's not working, and then locally, in-house with the nonprofits, be able to fill those gaps. So it works out really well, and we'll have lots of technical support from Community Solutions. They're actually going to even bring us some information from communities around Oregon that are doing the same thing successfully. So we don't have to start from scratch. We don't have to undo anything we're doing. It's just taking us to the very next level, so the homelessness is going down and more people are getting housed.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point right there, is with the Built for Zero initiative, we don't have to start from scratch. A lot of the things that other communities had to start building on as far as collaboration, we already have that in play, and we've had that in play with PATH. So we're really ahead of the game to actually initiate this, and that's what gives us where we feel within 45 to 60 days after we have a stabilization, we're up and running. We're getting people housed, we're getting people, in moving in a direction that they can move into permanent housing, as far as getting addiction, mental health, disabilities. If they're a veteran, we're going to get them working with veteran services. If they have mental concerns, we're going to get them some SSI. We're going to get them into, so whatever their needs are, we'll have a central hub to actually get them situated and get them what they need. That way there'll be no barriers.
Mayor, we've got IT standing by. We can play the video right now. It's 2 minutes, then IT can go.
Perfect. Are you good for a second? All right, let's
thanks.
take a break and we'll go through that video. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Your value.
Can you go up? Okay, we thought.
It was your value.
It's not.
Okay.
Sorry, let's try one last thing here.
That this was going on, and I was not aware of it.
I was in the United States.
Thank you for your patience, everyone. We're good now.
This community was hit really hard by the Great Recession of the 80s. We lost a lot of manufacturing. It's been slowly fighting its way back.
When I first started doing homeless outreach, I hated knowing that this was going on, and I was not aware of it.
I was in the United States Navy. I was hit by a drunk driver, and my son was killed. Stopped working, started drinking. I lost a son, and then I kind of was losing my other kids. So a lot of people who knew me, they would have never known I was homeless. That's not how I showed the outside world.
I think when you actually speak to people one-on-one and you hear their stories, you can hear what hardships that they had that led them to where they are. We implemented our coordinated entry system in the beginning of 2015.
If we didn't have a system that took people from that point of first contact to that point of housing, none of this would work. Mayor Morrissey put his name on the line. He put it out there in his State of the City address, we're gonna do this. And then he looked at us and said, we better do this.
Everything had to shift. Not only did we have to start working together, a lot of agencies had to change their mindset.
If you incorporate a collective impact process like we have done here in Rockford, you can actually make a difference.
Once we made that connection, the process just started rolling. We were housing people left and right.
I heard about a program called Community Action. I was able to get my key, sign a lease, and we're talking like 6 days. I mean, I was housed so fast.
Making the list was absolutely vital. That's the first step to truly doing population health management, is knowing who your population is.
The by name list for me started out as a list, but it became a list of people. It became incredibly personal to get them housed and to end homelessness.
Been here for 3 years. I see my kids every weekend. I feel good. I like going to work. I help veterans, but I like going to work because I know at the end of the day, I can help my kids.
Now, when we do outreach, it seems quieter. At times you kind of feel like, am I missing something? Am I missing someone? And then you just have to take a step back and you say, they're housed.
It was kind of surreal. Like, we knew we had put in the work to do it, but it was really hard to believe that we had actually accomplished it. The City of Rockford ended veteran homelessness in December of 2015 and chronic homelessness in 2017.
I kind of get choked up every time I watch that video. That's the beauty of it, is it's worked in other communities. It's going to work here, and I'm excited about it because I was telling Julie when we were sitting over there, I'm nervous, and not so nervous to speak to you, but nervous because there's lives on the line, and I want to see people get their lives right. You can. America's about second chances. Life's about second chances, and I think we can give the homeless population here in Grants Pass a second chance.
Is any other questions? Can you end and restate that one slide that you basically have the areas that have success, that have already done this? I mean, I just want you to reiterate that. I think it was slide on page 5.
Yeah, if I can find the mouse.
It's the areas where this program has worked.
Yeah, Rockford, Illinois, ended chronic and veteran homelessness. Bakersfield, California, achieved function 0 for veteran and chronic homelessness. Gulfport, Mississippi, saw a 75% reduction in homelessness. Chattanooga, Tennessee reduced homelessness by 40% through coordinated case management. Bakersfield, Kern County was another one that also functioned zero for all homeless populations. Denver, Colorado integrated Built for Zero also. There's over 140 communities throughout the United States that are actually using this and working this to reach Function Zero. I believe Grants Pass can come to Function Zero also.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Victoria?
Thank you, Julie and Jeremy. Very helpful presentation. Thank you so much. I would like to direct staff to move forward in just opening discussions with Jeremy about Built for Zero so that we can get this moving and get it into a meeting.
So would that be a direction or a motion?
You can provide, no, you can make a motion, that's fine. You can
Yes.
make a motion and then it's approved, and you approve it, and then that'll provide us with clear direction that we're working in partnership.
Then I would like to motion that staff communicate with Jeremy about Built for Zero so that it can be brought to council.
Okay, we've got a motion on the table. We got a second from Rick. And any discussion on that quickly? Nope. Let's just do a little roll call vote. Seth?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Yes.
Kathleen? Rick?
Yes.
Victoria?
Yes.
All right, so motion is passed, and we would advise, direct staff to please coordinate for some more information and see if we can't do something prosperous in the future. With that, we're going to go through the next item on the agenda, potential increase to the city's maximum building height standards. And it looks like we've got a presentation from Brad.
Thank you, Mayor. I am only going to open this up. Most of this presentation is going to be from Lloyd Middleton. Let me just pull it up here. It's under yours. This one? Oh, it's still open on your desktop upstairs.
We can't open it?
I think you, yeah, okay. Hopefully that's, yeah, it should be right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'll wait and see.
Our slides are set if you're ready, Mayor.
Yes, sir, please proceed.
Okay. Yeah, so building heights are governed really in two main places. One is in the building code itself, and then the other one is in the development code. So these essentially set, you know, the maximum height that buildings can be built to. Obviously, we're really talking about moving ahead buildings, maybe anything that's built from here forward that's subject to the codes. Discussions began quite a while ago, kind of a combination of Housing Advisory Committee and staff and some other members of the community, the development community, about the height restrictions, the limits that were currently in our code. We have, I think, 8 or 9 different residential zoning districts, and I think almost all of those, except for 2, had a 35-foot maximum height. So that would be the tallest that you could build would be 35 feet. And after we started digging into it from a residential standpoint, because a lot of this was driven by, the housing and the desire to increase the supply of housing, there was discovery that, this actually just doesn't affect housing. This also affects the business side of things. The general commercial zone, which is the city's largest commercial zone, has the majority of our commercial property, also had a 35-foot maximum height. It was surprising to me when it came that we actually had not seen more comments about that. That's actually very low when it comes to commercial construction. So I think those 2 things combined sort of moved us forward into this conversation. And a lot of work has been done through staff and working to get to this point today. So the main summary is here on the screen behind me. We're talking about a potential amendment to the development code. That would be necessary to increase the building heights. We would not need to see any change to the building code. We don't have any authority to change the building code anyway, so that's a good thing. That's all through the state. But really kind of coming down for 2 main things: housing choice and affordability, as I mentioned, and then on the commercial side, it's really creating potentially new economic opportunities by allowing for those higher heights in the non-residential. Supports your council goals by encouraging economic opportunities and facilitating sustainable and manageable growth. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Lori. Lori is our associate planner, one of our associate planners. She's fairly new with the city, so I just wanted to make sure you knew that she was on our team. She's done a lot of the research with this, combined with Amber Neek. We'll take it from there, and then we can have some questions. We know that you're shorter on time today, so we're going to try to move fairly quick through this.
Thank you, Brad. Good afternoon, Council, Mayor. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. All right, so background on this. Our current building height maximums were adopted in 1972, except there was a second industrial district that allowed building heights up to 100 feet as well, but we don't have that any longer. Nationally, maximum building height limits have increased with modern fire safety and structural requirements. Most development codes in the U.S. that limit building heights to 35 feet were widely adopted during the 1950s to 1980s, with a focus on low-density suburban development. Because Grants Pass is confined by topography and protected farmland, efficient use of land is vital to the economic well-being of the community. Opportunities for vertical development are currently limited to the Central Business District, which allows buildings up to 100 feet tall. Much of the CBD is also within the Historic District, which comes with some additional challenges. The adjacent zoning districts limit building heights to 35 and 45 feet. So here are all of our zoning districts and their building height maximums. As you can see, most of them are 35 feet with a few exceptions for industrial and a couple of the riverfront tourist commercial in the CBD. And here's a map of the central city, zoning map of the central city with our current maximums. I don't know how easy that is to see, but a scan through this, you can see most of the city is capped at 35 feet with a few exceptions in this area, the central area. Recent developments have required variances for height to enable projects. Removing the height barrier is a step toward flexibility in the development code, affecting economic development, revitalization, housing supply, and infrastructure costs. Middle housing development is typically on smaller infill lots, which could better economize the limited land area with increased height. Development potential of available commercial lots is constrained by height restrictions. Newer warehouses are increasingly designed to economize land area using height and creating upper floors for their needs. Modern buildings require larger interstitial spaces between the ceiling and floors. Those larger structural members, water, sewer, communications, fire suppression, and especially mechanical systems are housed in these spaces. And on the top right, you can see what we'll talk about in a couple of slides is a height buffer, where the higher floors are set back a little bit further from the property lines. These are the two recent examples of new developments that required variances to be built. One 4-story hotel and a 3-story medical facility. Staff recommends some modest increases in building heights across zoning districts. Implementing a standard height buffer can replace the need to regulate the number of stories and provide more flexibility in the development code. And here's a map of the central city with some proposed building heights. It's a close look. You can see most of the height is in the center of the city, and as you move away from the center, the heights decrease. And here are some examples of height buffers between different land use zones. There are a number of ways to accomplish compatibility using buffers. The top left sketch is a height buffer in the riverfront tourism commercial districts currently, and it provides increased setbacks for upper floors when adjacent to residential properties. Here are 4 choices for next steps. Hold another council workshop, solicit feedback from the development community, direct staff to draft an amendment and hold a UIPC hearing, or not proceed with an amendment at this time. And with that, myself and Ambernique are available for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Rob, and then Kathleen.
Yeah, thank you. So any new buildings obviously don't happen in a vacuum. So how actually is this, is the concept of taller buildings balanced with the need for solar setbacks and visuals, and because we already have our lot sizes, we typically have setbacks in our code, and when you start throwing taller buildings in, it completely changes pretty much everything. So how is that taken into account?
Are you referring to like the streetscape and kind of the built environment, the relation to like the human on the street? I can't remember what it's called, but
that would be one. Basically, solar setbacks and the effects that taller buildings are going to have on their neighbors and so forth.
Gotcha.
I mean, to me, on a case-by-case basis with a variance, the staff and also urban area, the
planning
commission, the commission, and also the council obviously can look at things on a case-by-case basis,
right,
and say, gee, does that make sense, or is there going to be too many impacts on the surrounding neighborhood? But if this then becomes embedded in our code, then a lot of that strategic or surgical look at that would be removed. So that, I guess, how is that addressed?
Well, this slide here are a few examples of height buffering, and that's used in a lot of places to create some compatibility between adjacent uses. So a commercial district next to a residential district. There are different ways you can set it up, and it could be simple or it could be complex. You can match the height of the adjacent district, and then an additional setback, you can go higher. So it creates these kind of, you look at the bottom left, you've got a 2-story in the front, and you have an additional floor, but it's set back from the street, so you don't have a shaded, you don't have a giant building at the property line, but you do have more flexibility, and you can do some denser development with that.
If I could, I'd just add on your variance point, Councilor. One of the common themes that we hear from the development community is we want to know what the rules are. We want to know how much time it takes, and we want to know how, you know, for cost. I mean, those are the things. And so anytime you throw a variance in, it throws in that unknown. By introducing the standards in the code, the architects and the development community no longer has to kind of do the guesswork of wondering if they're going to get approved for a variance or not. There certainly are a place for them, and we'll always have variances in the code, but that is one point that we do hear a lot, is to if you can remove the uncertainties from the development process, it helps us. So that's common. And then to your point about the solar, as you mentioned, the city just adopted a new solar setback ordinance, you know, what, year and a half ago. You know, those would still be in play. Those are really only dealing with, you know, the south facing. So it would affect some properties, and we would have to work with the builders on how that would be in play, because you would still have to ensure that those solar setbacks are met. But, you know, we're not thinking that the majority would have the solar code kick in, because that's only, you know, dealing with one orientation.
So in the cases, and that was one of the main things I was thinking of, so in the cases where those solar codes would kick in, the question is, would staff be proposing eliminating that work or eliminating those safeguards, or would those safeguards move forward? I guess that's my main question. That are we talking about tossing that? Are we talking about?
No, I think it's an additional mechanism to mitigate any concerns with building height for adjacent uses. So it's an additional layer of protections.
Meaning the solar would supersede.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Kathleen and Joel?
Yeah, hi. So I just wanted to get a visual. It looks like these newer buildings are the 45 feet, the All Care building and the Hampton.
Yes. They're both around 50.
50, okay. So how tall is the Redwood Hotel? Does
The
anybody
Redwood
know
Hotel
that?
is about 75 feet tall from what I could
75,
find.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that gives me some kind of measuring between what feels too high and what feels reasonable.
And in something like, so take for example the Redwood Hotel, if there was a commercial district and a residential district, the commercial district allows 75 feet, this allows 35 feet. They wouldn't be able to, with the height buffer, they wouldn't be able to do 100 feet with a 10-foot setback next to a 35-foot. They would have to do, depending on how you set it up, they could do, they could match the height next to it, and then with an additional setback, they could do an additional height. So
If you pull that one slide back up, it was very visual on that one right there. So see how the red is on that to the right? That's exactly what she's saying, is basically as you go up, because that's a residence adjacent to commercial, there's that buffer that helps out. Joel?
I have an ignorant question because I don't know. So as we go up in height, earthquakes and safety.
Right.
And then the other thing is our fire fighting capability for taller buildings. And then the last one, and I think I know the answer to all these, but the last one would be our water supply. In terms of, is it pressure, or would, I'm sure there's some engineering that could take care of that, but I just wondered about the infrastructure and safety that would need to change to accommodate that.
Well, currently, International Building Code has requirements for, depending on the height and the construction and the use. There's seismic requirements for seismic activity, or for building heights for seismic activity. And then the Oregon Fire Code and the International Fire Code also deal with different construction types. And there are different requirements based on, you know, what the use is and what the construction type is. Those are all taken care of in those codes.
Okay.
And whether Public Works, one of the reasons increased building heights is encouraged is because we already have infrastructure in place in the city, and we're getting to the limits. And so utilizing our current infrastructure is a lot more efficient than building out further with new infrastructure.
Okay, and then do we presently have the capacity to provide adequate fire protection with our equipment to taller buildings? Or is that going to require an additional investment?
Sorry, I was going to just speak loud because of my normal loudness. So currently, our ladder is capable of going up to 100, depending on how the setback of where we're at and where we're putting the structure. We can go up to the maximum range safely would be about 100 feet. We can hit 110, but that's stretching it. So it just depends on how far the setback is and the design around the buildings.
Rick?
My question was on the ladder truck. It's been answered. Thank you.
Any other questions? So I kind of want to make a statement. One thing I pulled out of this presentation is basically that our current roof heights, and I'm going to speak to this because it's kind of my area of expertise. The current roof heights were set forth back in the 50s or 40s or 50s?
We adopted
70s,
it in 72.
70s. And basically this is kind of bringing us up to the newer technology, which is already, infrastructure is kind of taken care of with that and everything else. So I think the theme of the story is we're kind of bringing ourselves up, our code up to what is currently used nationally. So, any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So if council has some direction, potentially, if this is something you're interested in, we can move forward with sending this through the UAPC process and go to them first and then come to you. Or if you'd like to take no action on this, but if council's comfortable with this and no further workshops, we can forward that to UAPC to make those code changes.
Before you guys make that decision, I want to bring it back full circle. What Brad was saying was some of the community within the building sector and the development sector is saying how long it takes to do this. If you have to go through a variance, it's extra steps. And if any wisdom can be imparted on you in the construction world, time is money. So the longer it takes for them to get a permit, it costs them more money, whether it's soft costs or interest payments on their loans. So it's just another thing to put in your brain as you're making this decision. So we'll be looking for some direction for staff. 4 items were listed on that last page. Go ahead, Victoria.
I'd like to direct staff to draft a proposal, text amendment, and number 3, and hold a UAPC hearing.
Okay, we got a first and a second on that. So that would be basically utilizing item number 3 to direct staff to propose a text amendment and hold a UAPC hearing to make this go forward. Any further discussion? Okay, a little roll call vote. Seth?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Victoria?
Yes.
Perfect. You guys have your direction. Thank you. Okay, next on the item on the agenda is going through agenda review. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the agenda that was presented to you on the dais? Sorry, Rob?
Yeah, I guess maybe this is a question for Aaron. I'm going to ask for a reconsideration Wednesday night of one of the budget positions. And how do I go about that exactly? Is that the first thing that we've got to work on at that meeting, or how does that work?
Sure. You could ask for reconsideration today. The rule is that the next regular business meeting that you would take consideration. So you could do it today, or you could do it Wednesday night, and then have the discussion at that meeting also for that immediate reconsideration. If it's but the budget committee members, if I recall, there was I think it was a 6-to-1 vote for appointment. So for reconsideration, one of the 6 would have to ask for the reconsideration. The one council member that did not vote in favor would not be able to ask for the reconsideration.
Did you get clarification, Rob? I'm actually a little confused. So would a counselor be calling for action today, or just a recommendation to call for action Wednesday?
So it could be two ways. If it basically states that reconsiderations, because usually reconsiderations occurred in a business meeting, we need to have the action, then the true reconsideration taken in a business meeting. That doesn't preclude a council member during a workshop to say, I would like to reconsider this decision if they were in the affirmative. And then, okay, we will have that and put that on the schedule for Wednesday night.
So if a counselor called for it within the workshop, would we be pursuing trying to see if it has favoritism on the dais, or just they're just making a statement?
Yeah, thank you,
That's
please.
what I'm trying
Yes, yeah, the reconsideration, there would be a vote for the reconsideration for the discussion, and we put it on the Wednesday meeting.
Okay, so basically if you need to does that answer your question, Rob? Because I was unclear.
I think so.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'd like to, well, I guess we would have to have someone who's on the positive side on this one. I'm very concerned with the appointment of Christina Schlegel to the Budget Committee based on the opinion of the Enforcement and Compliance Officer from the State Ethics Board. Her statement was pretty clear. Mark Bartholomew agreed in part with that statement. He disagreed with a different part. But my concern is that we could end up with being a day or two away from the budget hearings, or we could be before a key budget vote, and we could then get a ruling, because I know that actually a citizen did file a complaint with the State Ethics Board, so we are going to be getting a ruling at some point, and it would be, I feel, a very bad situation to have the Ethics Board come down and say, yeah, this person was inappropriately appointed to the Budget Committee, and have this person actually in process on the Budget Committee. So to me, the fact that the Ethics Board already, again, an officer on the Ethics Board offered an opinion in writing that it was inappropriate, and that appointment was highly questionable. That's my words, that's not her words. They basically said that it was not a clean appointment. So I'm hoping that somebody on the winning side of that appointment would see that there is a very likely or a very good potential that is an ethical dilemma, and would agree that we should reconsider that appointment.
Okay, so Rob has expressed his opinion on that, and to clarify what Aaron said, it would have to be a council member that voted in favor to actually make an official reconsideration. So, any other questions or comments? Rick?
Time for a different subject? Okay. I'd like to float a discussion on reconsideration on Mike Pelfrey. I had various constituents contact me. I'm not a Facebook person and so forth, and send me sites that he has put up on the internet, which shows no respect for different people, especially those in authority. And I don't endorse that, and I don't condone that. And I would like to see if there is, today on the dais, if there is support for reconsideration of Mike Pelfrey.
And just to confirm that you initially voted in positive?
Yes, I did vote in positive. I felt that Mike has the background with finances. I thought he did a very good presentation during the interview for the position, but I'm concerned about activity outside of the council, and I'm just concerned it's not appropriate behavior. Thank you.
So I guess since you are in positive, I'm understanding you can make a motion to put that on the Wednesday's agenda. So is that what you're doing? A motion?
Well,
to be voted on?
Can the motion be made today?
Yeah, you can make a motion today. That provides us, you're not going to be voting on whether to do the reconsiderate. You're voting to put it on for reconsideration Wednesday night. So you're providing additional
Yeah, so to clarify, if he does make a motion, it will be to putting the reconsideration on the agenda for Wednesday night to be voted on Wednesday night.
Right, and if it doesn't have support, then it wouldn't go forward for
Correct.
Wednesday night.
So there is a motion on the table to put reconsideration of Edgar Pelfrey on the Wednesday night's agenda. Is there a second? Seeing none, the motion doesn't go forward. And I'm sorry, I overlooked Victoria. She did want to add in, or did you not want to add in? Okay. Any other business for agenda review is what we're at? Yes, Kathleen.
Okay, so I wanted to make a motion to have an overview of this memo about the grants that were handed out to us recently. I'd like to have a breakdown of the limits and the who can receive these grants, and would that be possible?
So you got an informative memo and you're looking to get more information. So I guess the first action, would you be wanting to put that on the agenda for an upcoming workshop?
Workshop, yeah.
Okay. All right, and then we also,
And
go ahead.
I had one more.
Go ahead, Catherine,
And,
sorry.
no, that's okay. And so then I also wanted to request that we get our presentations in the workshops instead of in the evening council meetings. Is that because the workshops are the to the council meetings, right? So we get the workshops, and then usually that's the information that we're deciding on for the council meetings. So I would like to request that we have the workshops or the presentations in the workshops instead of Wednesday night, to shorten our meetings and make it more efficient.
Oh, I think to make the business meetings and Wednesday night meetings more efficient. Okay, I see what you're saying. So some communities, if I understand correctly, some communities will have, cities will have the workshops like they call them study sessions or workshops, where we're providing you, say for instance, building height restrictions or whatever. And let's say that was going to council. The main presentation was today, and then it would go to your business meeting. And some communities staff will be prepared to do a presentation if requested, but some communities will not necessarily do that. They've had the presentation in the workshop, and so a presentation not provided, they just go ahead and move into motion to discuss. So that would be a procedural change from a council perspective. And if the council as a whole would like to move that direction, staff it's whatever council would like to do. Yes, they do move the meetings a little faster. It doesn't mean that that council still can't have a presentation. Staff would be prepared to give you a presentation, but many times those have already been discussed, and a presentation is not necessary.
And just to clarify too, I think most of the time in the workshop, in the public meetings, it is a very tailored down synopsis, summarized presentation. And usually I think previous councils has thought that was amicable because you have more of a public presence, and so the public can get a little synopsis on what they're doing. But yeah, so you are looking to, I guess, restate what you're wanting to do?
Well, just to make the evening meetings more efficient and easier to get through. I see a lot of people leave early because the meetings go so long. It would seem appropriate that the public could stay as long as the meeting was if it didn't go so long, or we had to ask to go past 9 o'clock. So, it would just seems like it's a good idea.
So what I'm seeing to help express, I think what you're looking for is, we would make it not the norm to do the presentations, but make it as per request. So we'd still have the agenda items, they'd still be on there. Mayor, you'd be asking for action on an item, and you would ask at that meeting, is anyone requesting a presentation on this matter? And if not, then we move on with the action of that item. And then if there is someone, then any council member can say, yes, I'd like a brief presentation. This is a $14 million project, and I'd just like to hear a little more information. And then staff would come up and give the presentation before you take action.
So are you going to want to make that into a motion for us to weigh in on that right now?
Yes, I'd like to make that a motion.
Okay. So there is a motion on the table. Is there a second? I know Rob wants to weigh in here. Did you second? Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Discussion, Rob?
So if I understand correctly, Kathleen, are you proposing that basically that the presentation would then not be given on Wednesday night unless a counselor requests it? So that would mean that any member of the public who's watching on TV or in the audience or whatever would essentially not get a presentation unless some counselor happened to ask. Well, if that's the case, then I think it's a really bad idea, because there could be hundreds of people at home that might want more explanation on a given issue. There could be, even if there's only one person in the audience that was actually hoping to come to the council meeting to understand what the council was voting for, we would now have prevented them from actually having an understanding of what we're doing. So I think that is actually the antithesis of kind of what our Wednesday meetings are supposed to be.
Victoria and then Kathleen again.
These presentations would be in the workshops, so they would be available for the public to watch at their leisure.
Kathleen?
It sort of might be a retraining of the public to go to the workshops to get that information instead of the Wednesday night meetings.
Seth?
I'm naive right now to this. So are all the presentations that were given today also given on Wednesday night, or?
Normally, the procedures is if the workshops are kind of informational gathering, so you're going to get heavy presentations, you're going to give slideshows, so forth, so forth. If an item goes into action, meaning that it would basically go into a public meeting, then the norm previous has been to give a synopsis presentation before we voted on it. Basically, you give a presentation and it's opened up to public comment for opposition or in favor of, and then discussion with the council. So it is a synopsis, kind of summarized version. It's not the whole weighted package.
And so this wouldn't increase the length of a workshop then?
This wouldn't increase the length of the workshop, but the theme of this motion is to decrease the length of the public meetings.
But increase the length of the workshop?
No. I think the motion is basically to take away that synopsis summary before we voted on an action item within the public meeting, which would be the nighttime one. So I don't think it's intended to make these workshops longer. It's intended to make the public meetings shorter. That's the way I understand it.
That makes no sense.
Go ahead, Seth. Okay. Yeah, Aaron needs to add something.
I just want to add to that too. The workshop/study sessions, it could increase some of the workload on those. Say, for instance, there's an item that didn't come through. It could be that council will want to set precedents that, okay, if this is an item that we haven't really had a presentation on, we would give a presentation potentially if council wanted to during a workshop. So then you'd be prepared for the business meeting, so you could go ahead and just take action on a business meeting. So is there a potential? Maybe. It all depends on council's comfort level with some of the subject matters.
Rick?
I know we all don't like long meetings. Unfortunately, I think there's the ability here, or the consequences, we're just trading time. We're just moving part of that time from a Wednesday night meeting to the workshop. So I'm not sure we're actually saving any time. And then we're also increasing the time during the workshop, which some of you are working, I think, makes it harder on your day. But one other idea might be that we have actually maybe you have the full presentation here in the packet and so forth that's handed to us, but maybe on the Wednesday night when the presentation's given, you do a shortened version of that. You select off of that. So if we need additional information.
That's what happens. And that's why your packets are like this big, because they're full of all the information that you've already had in there.
But still, some of the exhibits here and
you're correct. Some of the PowerPoints are not in there.
The PowerPoint, yeah. And I would be in favor, while we have the printed PowerPoint, maybe the presentation, instead of being 10, 15, 20 minutes long, is shortened to like 5 minutes. Just a different idea.
Aaron wanted to add something.
Yeah, I guess it's in response to Councilor's comment. We can, from a staff perspective, try to even shorten them further. Like the mayor said, we shortened them down from workshop to business meeting. We could go even smaller, where all we're doing is basically each item, based on the complexity in nature, but could be maybe only 5 slides that really open up the subject matter, a brief history slide, boom, and direction from the workshop, and there you go. So you're talking 3 or 4 slides, and that's it. We're speaking for 3 to 5 minutes on subject matter, just opening it up so people have in general the idea of the history and what we're talking about, but then ultimately the motion, then it could go straight to motion discussion or public comment, depending on what it is.
Did you want to weigh in, Seth? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, selfishly, I would prefer not to lengthen the Monday workshops. Wednesday night evenings are the best, I think, for a lot of us, depending on what you do. And then also, I feel like, I signed up for the role knowing the time commitment. And from sitting in on previous council meetings, it seems like a lot of that time could be taken up just by public comment, depending on the issue, right? So, I don't know, right? That's just my 2 cents.
Thanks. Victoria and then Rob.
I think that it was stated that this would not make workshops longer, it would just make Wednesday night shorter, but then people presented scenarios where it might not be the case. So I think this is an effort just to make Wednesday night shorter, not to make workshops longer. And if we can accomplish that, then it would be a good idea. And the reason being, the public leaves halfway through the meetings on Wednesdays because they are just too long. And so they aren't seeing the presentation that Rob is saying they're going to miss because they are going home. So if we can do both things, I think it would be a good idea, because if we make Wednesday night shorter, the public is going to get a fuller presentation on Wednesday nights. And if we also maintain, as Seth, has stated, there's a time commitment for people who have work they have to get back to on these workshop days. If it doesn't make them any longer, I think it's worth doing. And the last thing is, we also said that if staff requested during the Wednesday night meetings that they have that presentation, then that option would still be available. So I think the best of all worlds are taken care of, but maybe I'm missing something.
Rob?
Yeah, I completely agree with Rick, and if there's a total amount of time that it's going to take council to understand a given issue, then there's a total amount of time. So you're either trading it Wednesday night for Monday, and I too am somebody that works on Monday and would prefer to not have the Monday workshops be overly long. I think actually, if we actually observe when people leave the meetings Wednesday night, I think people leave when their particular item of interest has been discussed. I think that another big chunk leaves at the end of public comment after they've gotten to say their piece on whatever. I wouldn't expect the public to stay around for matters from mayor and council, or stay around till 10 or 11 at night if there's nothing there that interests them. So it seems to me that people leave when their issue has been discussed and voted on, they leave. Another group leaves after the next one, and after public comment, they leave. But again, I think to Rick's point, and also to Seth's point, if there's a total amount of information that needs to be communicated, the total is going to be the same no matter how we divide it. And I think it should be divided in the place where the public is most likely to see it. I think retraining the public to make them also pay close attention to Monday workshops, I don't think is realistic, nor do I think it's fair to working people. Now the public would have to pay almost equal attention on Monday and Wednesday to satisfy this change that I think has dubious merit. So I'd be against that, basically from the point of the perspective that I think that we owe it to the public to show them what we're doing, and I think to have them go to one place, one meeting, I think is probably the most realistic way to do that.
Thanks, Rob. So you guys are all going to vote on this motion that has a second on it, but before you do that, I'm going to weigh in here. I am not for this whatsoever. You are taking transparency away from your public meetings on Wednesday nights. The viewership online is through the roof. You should look at your social media comments, your mailbox comments for email, that people are saying that they're watching this on Wednesday night. So to take away the small presentation on the Wednesday night before an action item, I would employ you to really think about that, because that does not look very transparent to the community, and it gives, you should give equal weight of time to the community on Wednesday night, because that is an official public meeting. Seth?
Yeah, I mean, I come from the marketing background, so transparency is everything. And I think, you know, like I said earlier, I signed up for this and knowing the times, you know, commitments, especially on Wednesday nights. So I would agree with that statement, just for full transparency with the public.
Further discussion? Kathleen?
Yeah, it wasn't my intention to take away transparency. It was to make it more efficient for all people involved.
Thank you, and I believe that was expressed in your sentiment, Kathleen, and I did get that you were intending to, but I think some of us are kind of approaching this that from the whole sphere that it could have some negative impact. So if there is no further discussion, I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. So we have a first and a second on this. The motion would be to eliminate all presentations previous of council action during the Wednesday night public meeting unless requested upon. Seth?
No.
Rob?
No.
Joel?
No.
Eric?
Yes.
Yes.
Kathleen? Rick?
No.
Victoria?
Because of good comments from people, I will also vote no.
Okay, so we have 2 in favor and more opposed. Motion does not carry. Thank you. Joel?
New subject?
Yeah, and we still have an action item we need, so. go ahead.
Okay, so I'm the liaison to the City Tree Committee, and they've spent a considerable amount of time and invested. They didn't spend their time, they invested it. And the city forester that left previous had invested his amount of his time in a urban forest management plan. It's almost a no-brainer, but it would be good to have it come before council and adopted. I don't know if anybody has any questions on whether they want to do that or not. If they do, I'd be happy to answer them.
So we do have a piece of paper that's in your pile there for a motion.
Oh, I move to adopt the Grants Pass City Urban Forest Management Plan. I didn't see it.
No, well, you wouldn't be able to move to adopt that at tonight's
Okay.
meeting. What you could do is, if you so desire, we can move it forward for a future adoption in a business
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah, I'm at 10 and everybody else is at 1. I apologize for that. So I move to have that presented before the council for adoption.
Okay, do we got it? So we have a motion on the table to move the urban forest management plan forward to a council review?
To a future business meeting.
Future business meeting. So the motion on the table is to take the Grants Pass Urban Forest Management Plan and put it to forth on an upcoming business meeting. Second? Second from Rob. Any further discussion? If not, we'll go through a roll call vote. Victoria?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Seth?
Yes.
Okay, passed. At this point in time, is there one last call? Sorry, Eric, go ahead.
I'm not sure if I can make a motion today or not on this, but I wanted to make a request to be able to possibly change the time for the workshops from 11:45 to 1 p.m. or sometime after 1:45 to give that buffer time, give people that are actually having full-time jobs able to get away and then not have to come back immediately. In other words, making more of a time frame or more of a work day in the morning before noon. That's what my proposal is. So I don't know if I can make a motion on that or not.
I would think because it is a significant change, I think you could call to have it talk to bring up for discussion within the next workshop would probably be the easiest way to do it. Go ahead. Oh, sorry, Aaron had to weigh in first.
Or if there's enough interest in council, I mean, ultimately, we could do a doodle poll and make send out a request and see if there's interest in what times that might fit better within council's project. So we could potentially do that also, Mayor.
So maybe put out like a memo and...
Yeah, we would just do a doodle poll and ask if alternative
That'll
times.
probably be quicker. Yeah, so let's do that.
I agree.
Okay, so Eric is requesting that we put out a doodle poll to change the workshop time. And if you could, Eric, if you could follow that up with an email to Aaron in the time that you would be entertaining?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay.
Just one clarifying thing. Does council have an interest in us trying to shorten our presentations at the business meetings even a little bit more in the spirit of our discussion that we had today? Because we can. I just need that direction, because I wouldn't want us to just go ahead and do it and then council like, oh, wait a second, that was only a 5-minute presentation. But we can try to shorten those presentations even more if council desired.
Rob, Seth, and then Seth?
As much as that sounds really attractive, I mean, there's some issues that, frankly, I don't need any presentation on. There's that other people need a lot, and vice versa. There's other issues that Joel might understand, you know, he's at a 10 and I'm at a 1. So I don't know how staff would know which council members need a greater degree of depth on any given issue. So as much as sometimes it's boring and time consuming, there's probably some councilors who need every bit of it. So I'm not for shortening them, unfortunately.
I agree with Rob. I think the theme of it would be basically to leave it into staff's hand with the theme that the Wednesday night public meeting would be a very shortened synopsis version. Because honestly too, because the staff is going to know exactly what kind of bullet points to put in there. That's what I would leave with that. Seth, did you want to add?
Well, yeah, I'm new. And yeah, no, I mean, I want to know everything. So I think keeping them as they are makes most sense for me.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, we're going to adjourn the workshop and go into executive session. The council will now meet in executive session for the purpose of discussing those subjects